I've seen some discussion about this potentially being the worst update we've seen in Gran Turismo 7 so far, and although I'm not necessarily going to agree or disagree, I think for me my initial reaction to that question, if you will, is that it's more of a context thing. So if you look at each of these three vehicles, beyond anything else in the update, they have potential. The Citroen, of course, comes from a long line of very tech-advanced Citroens for their time. I would argue something like a Citroen SM would have made more sense and be more iconic, but there you go. The Peugeot, although nothing special at all, and we'll talk about it more in a second, is another car which, as I've said before, you wouldn't really bat an eye at if it were in the game from day one. A prime example being the Peugeot 208. It's already in the game and nobody cares because it wasn't an update car. Nobody complains about that car being in there. But then where things get really egregious, at least in my opinion, is the Delta. Because the Delta is here with the other two, it kind of bogs it down. It makes what should feel like a great special occasion, much like seeing, the Renault 5 rally car come back, if it ever does in this game. It is supposed to, or at least in the future, or what we did have before, the Subaru Impreza rally car. It makes occasions like that feel less special. And in fact, the example which I just gave is a prime one to support my argument. That Subaru came with some other great cars. In fact, it was the last time we saw a new circuit, I think, as well, and that was a pretty big update. Far more players were happy about it because there were some cool vehicles, a new circuit, etc. And so the Delta to me is in an unfortunate position where it feels kind of dragged down by the other two cars here. And that is a shame because it is great to drive. So as far as details and stuff that is new in the update, you'll of course have seen, and we'll still see here in the video, a lot of the new stuff. There's some new events, of course. They take 5-10 minutes as they usually do. The most significant one is probably the rally event at Colorado Springs. Personally, I don't care for that track at all, but anything's good when it comes to new rally events, I guess, is so often overlooked. In terms of modifications on the Delta, you can add some extra lights on the front, unroll the mud flaps, which is pretty cool, and they are modelled as well, as you can see in the video, where they do flap around in the wind, which is a lot of fun. Then we have the Citroen. The Citroen is an interesting one because although it's not an obvious choice, often classics in particular, which you're not expecting much from, can turn out to be kind of these hidden gems. And I've said this before, but it definitely bears saying again, one of my favourite things when I review cars in real life, in Beards and Cars, is when I drive a vehicle that I'm not expecting as much from, and it ends up being great. Sometimes even like car of the year material. This car has the potential to be that for some people, because if you really do go into this expecting nothing, you will probably be pleasantly surprised. It's of course not the quickest thing around. You can tune it up to beyond 200 horses, even without of course a motor swap. Incidentally, there are only 5 motor swaps this time around, so again, more evidence I guess for people saying it is at the very least one of the most mediocre updates, if not the worst, and of course we'll touch on those new swaps tomorrow. To return to the Citroen though, it has some interesting visuals, more GTI style stuff. There's no rally based aero going on unfortunately, which would have been cool for a 4TC replica, and the long and the short of it is actually a very fun car to drive. With the Launcher it's fun, of course you can get well beyond 700 horsepower out of it, as you can with a lot of rally cars, and it feels great. In the case of the Citroen, nowhere near as powerful, but also nowhere near as expensive. The Launcher of course is 300 grand, the Citroen is 30 grand, and the Peugeot last and, well, by far the least, is a little bit cheaper again at 29,000. The interesting thing about the Peugeot is it has one decent feature. Because it's not a proper 4x4, or in my opinion it's not even an SUV, it's a soft roader at best, it's a jacked up hatchback with front wheel drive, is it's actually pretty light, and it's not as big as it looks. In fact, you'll even see here in the video, it's not even as tall as the Suzuki Jimny, which isn't exactly a large car to begin with. When you drop the weight though, that is the one thing that this car has got going for it, because you can drop it to well below a ton, like 900 and something kilos. I don't recall the exact amount, but that's not bad. It gives it some potential use for lower level events. In terms of power, you're looking at 130 in the case of the Peugeot, just over 100 in the form of the Citroen as standard, and again the Citroen is already below 1,000 kilos, so that's pretty decent. And then of course for the Delta, 1,100 kilos and 330 horsepower, and to be honest, it doesn't really feel like you need to add more power. It's already fantastic, but as I said, you can tune it to well beyond double that amount, in which case it gets a whole lot quicker. My biggest pet peeve this time around is missed opportunities, because in the case of at least the Citroen and the Launcher, you can make a damn strong argument that they had the right idea, but did it in the wrong way. The Citroen, as I said, I think an SM would have been more notable. In the case of the Launcher, even more so, because not only does this car feel like it's in a bit of a no man's land, the S4 would have made so much more sense, with the Audi Quattro and of course the Peugeot 205 being prime rivals that are right there, that they could have easily had it going up against, but for whatever reason they chose not to. In the case of the Peugeot, well really who cares? It doesn't matter what soft roader they add, there will be a couple of people who are super happy to see it in the game, but you know damn well the vast majority of players are not interested in cars like this. They weren't asking for it, it's not giving the community what they want in any kind of meaningful sense. And the thing is, even if you want to give the benefit of the doubt and support the argument of those 2 or 3 people that really love the fact that the car is in the game, well then the problem is that logic works against those people as well, because if that is the stance, oh yeah, but Kaz really cares about those smaller groups who want these kind of real-world obscure cars or less obvious cars, well okay then, where's the Marcos? Where's the Spiker? Where's the Mosler? Where's the Gumpert? Where's these cars that massive amounts of us in some cases would want, but in some cases maybe they are more obscure? And even if you want to say about like licensing, there are plenty of cars from established manufacturers in the game they could secure licensing for if they could be bothered. And I've said this already on the Discord for the channel, and it's kind of a joke, but you could almost believe it as a bit of a theory about how this works. A lot of the cars recently almost looks like Kaz walks out of the office, looks at the employee's car park, and just picks one at random, because a lot of these cars really do feel just like that. They are literally traffic vehicles. And in terms of other stuff, well, that's about it. There's the new events, there's the new Scotland scapes. They have updated the Nismo GTR, the front-wheel drive version. It's now classified as all-wheel drive, with the hybrid system being given more shrift, if you will, in the game, which is great. It's one of my favourite cars in the game. It's one of my favourite undervalued prototypes as well. And that's pretty much it in terms of what I'm going to talk about, at least for now. So as I said, stick around tomorrow for not only the members video, but also of course for the motor swaps video, and then in the 3 following days I will be reviewing each vehicle individually to give you a more rounded view of what they're capable of, what they're like when fully built, etc, etc. And with that, that's it for my thoughts on 1.60 in GT7. I'd love to hear yours down below, maybe positive, probably not in the majority of cases, but maybe surprise me. And for now, thanks for watching.